Employment Law This Week. I'm George Whipple. Last week, President Obama nominated D.C. Circuit Chief Judge Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. Garland is widely thought to be a centrist, but his reputation for deferring to agencies like the NLRB suggests that his decisions could favor employees if he's confirmed. Now for our top story this week, California releases new anti-harassment regulations. Starting April 1st of this year, California employers will have to comply with regulations that impose more detailed requirements for workplace harassment and discrimination policies and training. The new regulations from the state's Fair Employment and Housing Council require employers to develop written policies that explicitly prohibit harassment by third parties and list all protected categories under the FEHA. Employers must also provide a mechanism for employees to complain about an issue without involving an immediate supervisor. When providing training on these issues, trainers must review the definition of abusive conduct used in the California Code. Amy Messigian has more.
What the new regulation does is it just increases the duties and requirements that employers have in terms of notice to employees regarding their discrimination, harassment, and retaliation policies and procedures. So currently, all employers provide some form of sexual harassment notice to employees. Usually at the time of hire, there's a pamphlet that the state provides that all employers give out. This will now add to that in terms of the notice that needs to be given to employees. So while most employers have those policies in a handbook already, what this does is it specifies what needs to be part of that policy. So even if an employer currently has a policy, they'll need to review it to make sure that that it fits with the changes from these regulations.
Oregon institutes a three-tiered minimum wage system. Oregon is the latest of the many states and municipalities that have acted to raise the minimum wage. The state has enacted an unusual system with three distinct minimum wage rates. The highest tier covers the Portland metropolitan area. The lowest covers non-urban counties, and all other counties fall in the middle tier. The state has laid out a schedule for incremental increases of the wage each year. Starting July 1st, 2016, the highest rate will be $9.75 an hour. This new system could prove complicated to implement for Oregon employers with locations in multiple counties. New legislation proposed in Congress aims to clarify whistleblower policies. The Whistleblower Augmented Reward and Non-Retaliation Act would expand protections for those who blow the whistle on financial crimes. The bill would also resolve a circuit court split on the definition of whistleblower, expanding the scope of the term to specifically include employees who only report violations internally without filing with the SEC and CFTC. The WARN Act aims to broaden monetary incentives for whistleblowers and increase the scope of protected activities and prohibited retaliation. Whether or not this bill moves forward, we're likely to see some movement soon on the circuit conflict it addresses, either by legislation or by the courts. And that brings us to our tip of the week. John Hamlin, Chief Employment Counsel for Marsh & McLennan Companies, is here with advice on how to effectively manage a whistleblower to avoid retaliation claims.
It's always best to investigate promptly and thoroughly and to resolve matters as reasonably quickly as you can. But it's also important to manage the whistleblower, the subject of the complaint, and others who are impacted by the investigation. You'll want to check in with them. First of all, to reiterate your policy against retaliation and to provide information on the status of the investigation as it moves forward. Even if the information that you can provide is limited, it's still good not to go silent during the investigation. You need to continue to manage the parties who are impacted by the investigation the complaining party, that person's manager, and the subject of the complaint so that you can avoid any retaliation claims going forward.
Thanks, John. That's it for Employment Law This Week. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.